Alright, making sure this is recording. Yes, it is. Alright, so picking back up on the Brutal-Fairytales, Stray Dog's Redemption, from where we left off. The watchman walked over to them. He looked at Astaroth and the young boy's bruises. He could tell that Astaroth and the other boy fought with everything that they had. Their faces were bruised and bruised and bloodied. They were not exactly the worst for wears, but at least they were still conscious. It did not look like they needed immediate medical attention, at least. They just needed some ice on their wounds and to walk it off. In a few days, they would be completely back to normal. For right now, they just had to answer the city watchman's questions. The city watch offered Astaroth a hand up, but he just knocked it aside. In truth, it was his pride that hurt more than his face right now. Rook quickly helped his brother onto his feet. The watchman just smiled at them and petted the boys on their shoulders. How about I get the three of you a soda? The watchman stated, looking back at the entrance of the alleyway. Astaroth looked at the watchman in confusion. He was confused by what the watchman meant by three of us. There were only two people here, not counting his brother Rook. Astaroth looked towards the entrance of the alleyway. There was the girl from earlier, just standing there in shock. Her eyes were red like she had been crying, and had bruises starting to form on her face. The watchman led the three children down the street to the general store. There, the three children took their favorite drinks from the store's ice box. The watchman paid for their drinks and took them to the sitting area. He pointed at the bench for the children to sit down. Then he pulled out a small flip notebook with a pen in the spiral middle holding it together. It was time for the watchman to do his duty and see what exactly happened inside that alleyway with them. He looked over the three children and made detailed notes about their injuries. All right, one at a time. Tell me your names and what happened back there, the watchman said as he pointed the pen. The watchman said as he pulled the pen out and flipped the notebook open. Okay, let's start with you. Just tell me your full name and what happened, the watchman said, looking at the girl. My name is Terry Godwoods, and those boys grabbed me and pulled me into the alleyway. One of them said for me to hand over all of my money or they were going to beat me up, the girl explained tearfully to the watchman. I'm Alastair Nite, and I was walking down the street when I saw them. I stepped in to help but things didn't exactly go according to plan. To be fair, I think I was doing a great job right up until the point I wasn't. Then this kid showed up, and then you showed up, the young boy explained. I'm Astaroth49, and I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. On an unrelated note, what exactly is the difference between a concussion and a contusion? I'm starting to worry a little, Astaroth said, holding the cold glass bottle against his right eye. I really don't know, kid. Just stay awake and stay conscious for as long as you can until you get home. What's your brother's name? The watchman asked, looking at Rook. His name is Rook, like the tower piece in chess is called a rook. Just don't ever call him Rock. He doesn't like that. He does not like that at all, Astaroth answered as he petted his brother. Rook, a strong name for a strong hound, the watchman stated, looking over at his sister. Hmm? The watchman said, looking to his marauder as she barked at him. The watchman's marauder looked at Astaroth, then back to her brother, then back to Astaroth, barking at him. Rook growled softly at her until Astaroth petted his brother once again. The watchman petted her head, then scratched his four-legged sister's head. The watchman nodded his head as he focused his attention onto Astaroth and Rook. Okay, boy, so let me see that gun you've got in your trench coat, the watchman stated. Astaroth quickly shot a cold glance up at the watchman. Rook started to growl softly and quietly at the watchman's marauder again. The other two children quickly looked at Astaroth in shock as he bit his lip, enraged, reaching his hand into his trench coat and pulled out an old lever-action pistol. A dull, faded metal barrel, a dull, faded golden receiver, with the side ejector on the right side. A worn black leather wrap around the outer bar of the golden lever, and a carved base of a deer's antler for the handle, wrapped with worn black leather straps. Astaroth hesitantly handed it to the watchman. As the watchman looked at the gun, Astaroth shook his head. Sorry about that. Before he pulled out a laminated card and handed it over to the watchman. Astaroth Tiberius Nite, hometown Dunwich, age 10, firearm license C, mana item C. Does your parents know you're carrying this? The watchman stated, looking at the license before handing it back to Astaroth. It's dangerous out here, so I've got my brother here and that peacekeeper. They won't let me leave home without them, Astaroth said, gesturing towards Rook before reaching for his license. This is an old school gun. 32 Magnum. Where did you get it from? The watchman asked, examining the gun. Earlier this past year, an old regulator came through my hometown just doing his job. He got into a shootout. During that, the regulator got shot and dropped that gun. Got shot and dropped that gun. Blah, blah, blah. I picked it up and shot the bad guy. After that, the regulator gave me that gun and his badge. He told me that if I ever wanted to make a difference in the world, I should join the regulators. That's all she wrote, Astaroth explained, showing the badge on his belt. The young boy Alastair looked at Astaroth and his badge, then smiled at him. As Astaroth saw him smiling at him, Astaroth just rolled his eyes at the boy. Regulators, huh? The watchman said, looking at the badge, and smiled. Astaroth just nodded his head quietly. Takes real courage and years of law enforcement training to join them. So if I were you, kid, I wouldn't get into any more street fights, understood? The watchman said, handing Astaroth back his gun. Are we done here? Astaroth asked, putting the gun back into its holster. Yeah, we're done, the watchman stated as he gestured towards Rook and Astaroth. With that said, Astaroth stood up to leave. The little incident had taken longer than he anticipated. If he didn't hurry, he was going to be late. At least they were done here now, so he could finally get back on his merry way. The watchman and his marauder escorted the young girl Terry home, as the young boy Alastair followed after Astaroth and Rook. Astaroth looked back and saw Alastair. He glared at him in confusion. He didn't know why this young idiot was following him. He was hoping that if he ignored him long enough, he would just go away on his own. Astaroth started to wonder if this Alastair wanted to fight him now, or is there something else going on? As he pulled another cigarette from his case and lit it, he took a puff off his cigarette before walking off down the street, with his cigarette in one hand and his drink in the other. Still, Alastair was following right behind him like a lost puppy. When Astaroth was nearly finished with his cigarettes, he turned around to see Alastair still following him. Astaroth had finally had enough of this and was ready for the boy to go away now. He just wanted to be left alone right now. Stop following me now, Astaroth demanded, flicking the cigarette onto Alastair's overalls. You seem tired and like you're going to a funeral, Alastair stated, looking at the bags under his eyes and his clothes as he was wiping, looking at the bags under Astaroth's eyes. As he was wiping the embers off his overalls. Maybe I am going to a funeral, Astaroth stated coldly. What are you going to do if those jerks come back? Alastair asked. I'll put a bullet in their leader's skull, threaten the last four. When one tries to retaliate, put a bullet into his skull. The last three will retreat, knowing they lost the false sense of power of numbers they undoubtedly still believe in. Astaroth explained his organized plan, gesturing towards his gun with a cold tone in his voice. And that will get you put in jail, Alastair stated, nodding his head. No, any defense attorney would claim self-defense. The jury would agree since I had a violent altercation with them earlier today. So to protect my life, I had to end theirs. It's that simple, Astaroth explained with the same inhumanly cold tone to his voice. Okay, then, Alastair said, unsure of how to respond. Astaroth turned back around and continued walking down the street. As Alastair noticed Astaroth was leaving him behind, he quickly followed suit. Astaroth paused for a moment as he heard Alastair coming up behind him. I know you're not still following me, dumbass, Astaroth stated. Alastair could hear the anger growing in his voice. Well, you'll need an eyewitness to your whole self-defense plan. Would help, right? That would help, right? Alastair explained. Astaroth paused for a moment and thought about what he just said. Well, you're not wrong, Astaroth said, throwing his empty soda bottle aside. The sound of breaking glass stopped everyone in the street. However, Astaroth and Rook just kept walking on. And okay, we still got a couple minutes left to go. Once Astaroth finally reached his destination, he came to a large newspaper manufacturing building. On top of the building was a massive neon sign on it. It was shaped like a newspaper and read Tomorrow's News Today, Daily Info. Behind the sign were several long radio broadcast towers to help spread the radio waves from coast to coast. Astaroth looked at the building before crossing the street. He just needed to go in, sign up, then be done with this day. Alastair knew about this company. Its founder was a former soldier turned radio broadcast host who specialized in conspiracy theories. He owned several buildings like this one across the country and owned several different radio broadcast towers. The owner of Daily Info was self-funded by selling vitamin supplements, clothes, books, and other stuff like that. He says we do this so we can stay as an independent studio. However, the rest of the country just thinks that he's absolutely crazy. Nothing but tinfoil hat conspiracy theories after conspiracy theory. Alastair was starting to wonder why Astaroth was coming to this building. You do know the guy who runs this company is crazy, right? Like he's completely off his rocker, Alastair asked, following Astaroth across the street. First off, I really don't care. The pay is good, so I do the work. Second, you know it's all just an act because it sells, right? I mean, the guy did predict we'd end up going to war with our northern neighbor over iron rights of all things. So, is he really crazy, or is it just an act because it's clearly selling? Astaroth explained, walking into the building with Alastair right behind him. Inside, he walked up to the reception window and rung the bell. A young adult woman pulled the dividing window. Uh, sorry. Pulled the dividing windows and looked down at the young boys. Can I help you? The woman asked. Alastair smiled and waved at the young woman. The young woman just smiled back at him. I'd like to sign up for the summer newspaper delivery, please, Astaroth answered. Okay, your name, please, the woman asked, looking at the clipboard in front of her. Astaroth T. Nite, he answered quickly. You're already on the list. Your grandfather signed you up earlier today. Be here in the morning at 6 a.m., the woman explained. Huh? What? Okay, thank you for your time. Goodbye, Astaroth said as his anger slowly started to grow inside him. He stopped before he got too angry. He quickly stormed. Whoops, what did I just do? He quickly stormed out of the building and started off down the street with Rook and Alastair in tow. As he lit, uh, as he lit another cigarette, he looked back at Alastair for a split second. Now what? Alastair asked. Astaroth just looked at him, then at his brother. Time to go home, Rook, Astaroth said as he continued walking. He headed straight through the streets and stopped at the general store. Alastair followed him inside and watched as he paid. Whoops, I messed up again. Him. So he paid for a large 50-pound bag of dog food. As he paid for the dog food, Alastair was wondering if Rook could eat all that by himself. Astaroth looked at Alastair and rolled his eyes at him before heading outside. He lit another cigarette before he adjusted the bag on his shoulder, then walked off. He walked through the city with the bag on his shoulder. He walked right into the city park with Alastair right behind him. Alastair continued. If I can get this to work right. Continued to follow after Astaroth, even as he walked past the park trail, deeper and deeper into the forest of the park. Alastair started to wonder if Astaroth was homeless and lived in the woods. Okay. He noticed strange symbols carved onto the trees that Astaroth was walking towards. Astaroth moved through this maze of wood, grass, and dirt with an autonomous action, as if he didn't even have to think about it. He knew which turns to make at specific symbols. Alastair watched and followed as the machine that was Astaroth went on his way. He merely went through this maze of wood like a simple walk. However, Alastair was fearful. If he lost sight of Astaroth and Rook, then he would become lost in the maze. After all, there was an old urban legend about a fae that lived in these woods. Simple urban legend, or superstition maybe. However, people did seem to get lost in them quite easily and end up halfway across the park, or in one reported case, all the way across the entire city itself. Some people, however, have been reported to disappear for days, weeks, if not months at a time in this place. This was the reason why not many people dared to come into this place. There was really no way to confirm or deny this. Maybe they just had terrible sense of direction, or maybe there really were supernatural creatures living in this place. One thing for certain, too many people keep getting lost in it. Alright, that's going to be a good place to stop for today. I'll pick this back up later. I do hope you enjoy. I do apologize for all the technical difficulties that I'm having. Please like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and leave a comment down below. It really does help my channel grow. Thank you very much, and have a beautiful day.